The rain had just stopped over Akron, Ohio on the morning of the 14th of October 1954 when Patrolman Daniel Hovanek stepped out of the 2nd Precinct house on South Main Street. His shoes were polished black leather, shined the night before with a cloth his wife Marjorie kept folded inside a cigar tin. His shield, number 412, sat exactly 4 inches below the notch of his collar, because the desk sergeant measured it with a wooden ruler if he doubted you. Hovanek lit no cigarette on the steps. He did not lean. He did not slouch against the iron railing. He stood, hat squared, gloves on, and waited the full 11 minutes until his beat partner arrived, because a uniformed officer visible to the public was, in 1954, a kind of public monument. Children watched him, shopkeepers watched him, and he knew it. Hovanek lived under a code. Some of it was written into the city manual, bound in green cloth, sitting on every captain's desk. Some of it was the law of Ohio. But most of it was unwritten, passed shoulder to shoulder, from one shift to the next, in the locker rooms and squad cars and back booths of all-night diners. Every man in that uniform knew the rules. Every man obeyed them. And then, within a single generation, almost all of them were gone. Tonight we are counting down 10 unspoken rules every 1950s policeman followed, the codes that shaped a uniformed man from the moment he buttoned his tunic to the moment he hung it up. By number 4, you will hear about a single phrase that could end a 20-year career in one afternoon. By number 2, the rule that governed what an officer could and could not accept from a grateful citizen, and the Cleveland captain who lost his pension over a turkey. And at number 1, the heaviest rule of all, the silent oath that bound them to one another, and the 1,967 commission report that began to break it apart forever. We begin at number 10. The uniform was never civilian clothing. A patrolman in 1953 Pittsburgh did not stop at the grocer's in his blues to pick up a loaf of bread for his wife. He did not sit at a lunch counter in uniform without his hat placed crown down on the seat beside him. Officer Raymond Costas of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police was written up in March of that year for being seen in full uniform carrying a paper sack of apples down Liberty Avenue. The reprimand sat in his file for 9 years. The uniform belonged to the city, not to the man, and the man wearing it was, for those 8 hours, the city itself. Number 9. You never sat down on duty. Not on a bench, not on a stoop, not on the low brick wall outside the Woolworths. Sergeant Thomas Brennan of the Bronx, badge 7,841, used to tell rookies that a seated officer was an absent officer. In the Bronx Command in 1956, a patrolman caught sitting twice in 1 month was moved to the midnight tour, which meant losing your evenings with your family until a captain decided you had remembered how to stand. Men learned to stand for 8 hours, then 9, then 12. Their feet swelled. They never complained out loud. Number 8. The hat stayed on outdoors and came off the instant you crossed a threshold. Indoors at a funeral home, indoors at a hospital, indoors when you spoke to a widow on her own porch with the door open behind her. Officer Calvin Whitmore in Birmingham, Alabama, in 1957 was remembered by his daughter Eleanor in an oral history recorded by Samford University in 1998. She said her father would stop in the front hall, remove his cap, smooth his hair with 2 fingers, and only then step into the parlor where a body was laid out. He did this for strangers. He did it for 40 years. Number 7. You called every man sir and every woman ma'am, even the man you were placing in handcuffs. The Chicago Police Manual of 1951, page 64, stated it plainly. The officer's authority is reinforced, not diminished, by courtesy. Patrolman Anthony Russo of the East Chicago Avenue station was known on his beat as the man who said please before he said anything else. He arrested a burglar named Howard Pelletier on a January night in 1955 with the words, "Sir, I am going to ask you to put your hands behind your back." Pelletier later wrote him a letter from Stateville Penitentiary thanking him for the dignity. Russo kept that letter in his locker until he retired in 1971. Number 6. You did not draw your service revolver unless you intended to fire it. The Smith & Wesson Model 10 sat in the holster, and the holster sat closed. In Kansas City in 1954, drawing your weapon required a written report by the end of the shift, signed by your sergeant, even if no shot was fired. Officer Leland McCabe drew his revolver twice in a 26-year career. He fired it once. He retired in 1968 having killed no one and having lost no partner. And at his retirement dinner at the Muehlebach Hotel, his lieutenant called that the truest measure of a policeman's craft. Number 5. You never spoke about a case in a public place. Not in a tavern, not on a streetcar, not at a Sunday dinner table when your brother-in-law asked what was new. Detective Frank Sullivan of the Boston Police Department was suspended for 4 days in 1956 for discussing the Brinks robbery investigation with a barber on Hanover Street. The barber told one customer. The customer told a reporter. The reporter ran a column. Sullivan's captain told him a policeman's mouth is the cheapest leak in the city. Number 4. You did not criticize a brother officer in front of a civilian. Ever. Not by name, not by implication, not by a sigh and a glance. The phrase that ended careers was simple, 3 words long, spoken by a Cleveland patrolman in 1958 to a complainant on Euclid Avenue. He should not have done that. Those 6 syllables, repeated back at a departmental hearing, cost Officer Walter Janik his sergeant's stripes and 12 years of seniority. You handled a brother in private, in the locker room, behind a closed door, never on the sidewalk, never in front of the public you both served. Number 3. You finished your tour. A 1950s policeman did not call in sick for a head cold, a sore back, or a quarrel at home. Detroit patrolman Edward Kowalski worked his beat on Michigan Avenue in February of 1955 with a fever of 102 because his partner's wife had just given birth and the watch was already short 2 men. He finished his 8 hours, walked home, and slept for 16. His captain knew. His captain said nothing, because saying something would have insulted him. Number 2. You accepted nothing of value from the public you served. A cup of coffee from the diner counter, yes. A sandwich on a cold night sometimes. But never cash, never goods, never anything that could be weighed or counted. Captain Bernard Holcomb of the Cleveland 5th District was forced into retirement in November 1959 after accepting a 22-pound turkey from a grateful restaurant owner 2 days before Thanksgiving. He had served 26 years. He lost his pension. His wife Eileen sold their house on West 117th Street the following spring. The turkey had cost $4.90. And now, number 1. The heaviest rule of them all. You never, under any circumstance, abandoned your partner. Not in a foot chase down a dark alley. Not in a brawl outside a bar at closing time. Not in a hospital corridor when the bullet had already done its work. The bond was older than the badge. It was the silent oath sworn the day you were paired, and it was honored in ways the public never saw. In 1960, Officer Michael Donnelly of the New York Police Department carried his wounded partner James Furlong 4 city blocks through a February snowstorm to Bellevue Hospital because the call box was broken and the radio cars were on other runs. Furlong lived. Donnelly never spoke of it. When the 1967 President's Commission on Law Enforcement released its report, it identified that very bond, the closed brotherhood of the patrol car, as the central obstacle to reforming American policing. The reformers were not wrong about everything, but what they called a wall, the men inside it called a promise. The rain has stopped again over Akron. Patrolman Hovanek is gone now, buried in 1,989 inches Holy Cross Cemetery, his shield retired to a glass case in the 2nd Precinct lobby. The steps where he stood are still there. The iron railing is still there. No one stands the full 11 minutes anymore. No one measures a collar with a wooden ruler. The cigar tin with the polishing cloth sits in his daughter's attic in a box marked simply, Dad's Things. Which of these rules did your father or grandfather live by? And which one do you wish had survived into the world we live in now? Tell me about him in the comments. Tell me his name, his city, his badge number if you remember it. There are more forgotten codes waiting, and next we will sit inside the unwritten rules of the 1950s schoolteacher, including the single sentence a principal could say that ended a woman's career before the final bell rang.